The Jim and the Terry Show, coming to you from the Hobbit Hole Studio in Cajun. I'm your host, Terry.
And I'm Jim, the other host guy.
And we are the two retired guys who clink our coffee mugs together.
Click.
There's our click.
You just broke my...
Well, does that pick it up?
I doubt it.
Well, I have a dregs in the bottom of my coffee at this point. What's our potpourri episode? Potpourri meaning our mélange. We have a mélange of ideas. The ingredients of our well thought out cogitations are being mingled and sprinkled with our coffee dregs. And out comes wisdom, we trust.
Or
we
we're
just
two guys sitting in a ditch, nursing a hangover.
And that could very well be true at some point.
Fighting over the last rat that we can eat before we do our show. Now we're being Stephen Colbert.
The last rat.
The last rat before we do our show. You ever watch Stephen Colbert when he talks about Meanwhile?
Oh, meanwhile.
Then he goes, as most of you folks know, I start my day over there going through the fine mahogany wood that, and he goes on about all the big words about shaving it down and staining it and to bring you the enchevale fall of my monologue. But just sometimes, I find myself in a dust pile.
Wallowing.
Nursing a hangover.
With sackcloth and ashes.
Fighting with a rat over the last crumb from a table to give you my segment.
Well, here we are. Our wisdom in our potpourri episode is going to be, let's start off with SVB, Silicon Valley Bank.
Yes. That's that was pretty bad.
It was pretty bad, and it could have gone very bad very quickly.
Well, I mean, this is one of our shows before we talked about the incompetence of the Russian army or military. Is this a case of incompetence?
In the U.S. banking system,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, even the governing, there's a governing, what do they call it? There's a little test they go through to see if everything's cool. And somehow it got through. And they said, gee, how could that have happened?
How could that have happened? That's an interesting...
Well, you have some ideas that you told me about.
Yeah, well, let's go back before I get to that idea and introduce the notion of banking regulations, American style versus Canadian style.
There's a difference?
There is a big difference.
Okay.
The banking system in Canada is highly regulated. In fact, we weather most ups and downs in markets very well, better than most countries, and certainly better than the United States, even though our economies are so inextricably connected.
Yes, they are. And you're right. I've never heard of even one run on a bank in Canada, ever. Yeah, there's never been a run. And, and in the United States, which we always view as the freest of freest, sometimes panic really sets in. And they start lining up wanting their money, and it takes the president of the United States to make an announcement that your money is secure. It's not secure for the investors because they took their chance. And I agree with that, by the way. They're the ones that took the chance, but it's also the reason why I believe they should be able to be rich. They took the chance, so they're the ones that lose the money, and then obviously everybody in the Silicon Valley Bank was fired. All the executives were fired. What happens? They just bring a new crew in, or what?
I don't know if the bank goes belly up.
Government auditors come in?
There will be no SVB in the future.
I guess.
Well, what upsets me in that story is that usually the bailouts happen for the owners of the business, and the notion that it's too big to fail becomes an operating principle. Why should we save this private bank using taxpayer public money?
Yeah, and Obama had to do that, didn't he?
Yeah, Obama did it for the auto industry, especially as well.
Think? Wasn't there a big wig at
SVB?
Silicon Valley Bank? Wasn't there one of the executives that took all the shares out?
It took a lot. Millions and millions.
Yeah.
Peter Thiel.
So
who happens to be a conservative financier of Trump.
Well, there you go. And so they know it's coming down, and so they make their money. Again, this whole idea of what's good for the goose isn't good for the gander. They're above everybody else is suffering.
Well, I'm hoping there will be some investigation, and the guys, the CEOs, and those in the know who bailed on the bank in the day or so prior to the bank having the rush, did they, in so doing, cause the run on the bank that caused the stress in the first place?
And is that all going to cause more runs on more banks, which cause more failures and
Right.
lack of confidence? So is this going to turn into a flat-out depression?
I don't think so. I think even for the U.S. and their deregulated banking industries, they can isolate this failure. I think this one has a new nuance that I'm not that familiar with, so I need to follow this one through. They were largely cryptocurrency based, and I'm wondering whether they took risks too much in crypto. So that could be part of the problem there too, outside of the guy Peter Thiel, who's a ne'er-do-well on the conservative dark money side of things, financing right-wing causes. I think there's some comeuppance to pay for him,
So they were looking for quick money.
or at least to bail before they realize you said it's too cool or something. There's a fact check or a check on your sheet where you had to have so much solvency. You have to be able to give people their money back. You can't have it all invested. And I think they had overinvested and were losing it because it was in is it SFX? Who did another crypto went down weeks ago in the past?
It was huge.
So these things are falling, I don't want to say like dominoes, but it could be, and it's all crypto based. And just to bring it back home to Canada, let's just say Pierre Poilievre wanted the Canada pension plan to be crypto based.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't even know about it, to tell you the truth. It came out of nowhere, but is there a force that doesn't want crypto to go into the currency? Would the government be a problem?
No, crypto's supposed to be a dark money, easy way to launder stuff because there's no record keeping. It's not real.
Oh, okay. So is this part of the whole freedom thing? You should be able to launder money?
Well, remember our own Ottawa convoy was financed through cryptocurrency fundraising.
No, you need laws in a free country. You need laws.
You need regulations.
Yeah, because a lot of people end up getting hurt at the conningness of people who, that's what they do. They plan their whole lives on conning people. There's people that are like that.
So there you go. That was one of my potpourri concerns, was what's happening with the banking system in the United States.
You said something about Switzerland, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, the Credit Suisse, that was on the news this morning, has largely opened accounts for what I would call Saudi dark money, which means ne'er-do-wells in the Saudi kingdom may have been using Switzerland as a way of laundering stuff gained from illegitimate means, and there's a wobble happening in Switzerland's banking system. So I'm kind of curious. I don't know that it'll amount to much. So far that I've read, it's just Saudi ne'er-do-wells and ne'er-do-well activities, dark money, dark places, financing dark stuff.
Mark of the beast.
Mark of the beast. There you go. Well, I will stay tuned for that.
A whole brand new currency coming out.
Okay, what is it going to be?
They talked about that for ages, that they said there's time for a reset. Remember all that reset talk?
Yep.
Time we have a reset. And I don't know how good this reset's going to be, so interesting.
Well, I think the reset notion is the idea that capitalism has gone so far and that the rich have gotten richer, and that's not good. Capitalism has done its thing, and it's only caused unequal distribution of wealth and great suffering by the masses. And again, we go to Robert Reich and his charts on the unequal distribution of money in the United States, and CEO salaries now over 400 times the average.
Money should have been so distributed. I thought you had to earn it and make it and all the rest of it.
No, it's not quite as simple as the Calvinistic work ethic of the Middle Ages and the Protestant Reformation. Those were the days, Jim, when maybe, but then even then you had your guild system of crafts, and you had to be a child indentured to a craftsman in order to become a master violin maker, a stonemason, or something else. You were trained from the time you were a kid.
I followed a sloth
Okay. Ice Age Part 3. Jim followed a sloth.
Yeah.
And we know
So,
how that
and I
worked out in
passed,
Ice Age.
I passed with flying colors. I know how to do that.
Okay. Well, that's another thing I was interested in. How about this one? Because I was a history teacher, this article kind of got me, and that's the one that said history. It was that poster that was on there. I can't believe we're actually fighting about whether or not teachers should be allowed to tell the truth in history class. That's a poster that I found called under a posting called Teach the Truth. Yeah, I always thought that's what we were supposed to be doing. Teach what we know, and when we know more, we'll do it better and teach it better, but based on what we know. Slavery is a thing. Slavery is real, and slavery did lead to where we are today in America. And we're not Americans. We still have residual issues in Canada. It's not equal here. But please, let the history teachers who trained and studied and paid good money for their lessons teach history and learn maybe to tell the truth.
Again, as long as the picture here, what we're looking at is the slave trade.
Yes. It's a slave ship, and the guy, his hands bound behind his back. There's a queue of them. They're next to naked, being stripped to loincloth and being manacled, and they were chained to the ship. So often if the ship went down in stormy weather, the slaves went down with the ship, being chained to it.
Yeah, and that's terrible. I just don't want them to teach, make...
Let me get that straight, and that's terrible.
Well, it is terrible.
Said so matter-of-factly.
There's a lot of
Where's
things
the passion?
There's a lot of things in this world, that were terrible. The building of the pyramids, we don't know who built them. It was terrible.
Alien space lasers. All right. Jim and Terry Show signing off for this week. Bye-bye for now.
Fires in California.
Did the aliens